We have a few people who've joined us. Looks like we have a few people who've joined us, so thanks for being with us. I can see we have Randy, Allah. If you're there as well, I would be willing to see if you might have some comments as we go through this and have more of a conversation and a discussion regarding today's topic. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring up our screen so that everybody can kind of see what I'm going to be talking about today. And again, I'm excited. We're going to take just a minute or two here as we go through, before we start going through the presentation, to let a few other people join us here. So again, I'll just do a brief introduction. I'll introduce myself a little bit more here into the presentation, but I'm Nathan Erznoznik. You can see my last name. I like kind of sharing a little bit about my last name. You can remember ears, nose, neck. Ears, nose, neck is part of what that is. So thanks for being with us. And we're going to be talking today about understanding your customer and maximizing your sales with 4 simple steps. And it's a little bit more than really sales. It's going to be 4 points that I really feel are very impactful for individuals in their own, not even regarding a store, but in your own career or with those that you might also consider customers to you as well. So it's going to be a good little bit of topic. So I hope, Darren, if you're there, if you can give me a thumbs up, I want to make sure everybody can see what we've got going on the screen right now.
Yep, you're all good. I see it on the screen. Yep, you're good.
A couple of people join us, so we're going to move into this. And if you do have comments or questions, please share those with me as we do talk a little bit about the different parts we're going to share. So again, I'm Nathan Erznoznik, and today I want to talk about 4 items I think are very critical that help us better understand our customer, and not only our customer, but maybe where they're coming from. And this will be our agenda. So I'm going to talk a little bit about value at the beginning. So defining the value, and that means the value of this presentation and these 4 concepts. I'm going to ask some questions. I'd love to get some of your thoughts and have you think about those. If you're here with me, we can get some of those audio from an audible standpoint. If not, I'm going to have you think about those in your mind. And we're going to look at that. I'll tell you a little bit about my background, where I'm coming from, and part of what that means and why there might be some validity behind some of these 4 steps. Again, we're going to go through 4 steps. The first one is the value of creating an experience. And again, if you're thinking about this, that can work from independently with you inside of a business, with a career. It can work regarding you if you're a shop and you're doing retail direct to consumers. It can also affect and work with you if you're doing business to business. And so I think this really relates to all of those different areas. And so we're going to talk about the value of creating an experience. We're going to talk about being prepared to not sell. And that's an interesting thing. And we'll talk a little bit about why that's such an important. 3, we're going to talk about answer a question with a question. So why might we answer a question with a question? If somebody asks something, usually we feel like that request that they have is something that we probably maybe should just immediately respond to. That's not always the case. So we're going to talk a little bit about answering a question with a question. Number 4 is creating expectations. And this is an important one because it gives those that you're communicating with part of the next steps or part of the journey. And at the end, we'll come back to a summary. So that's what I'm looking to cover as we go through this next just under a half hour. And so again, thanks for those that are joining. If you're coming and joining us, I am going to, again, I'm Nathan Erznoznik, sharing a few things. We just cleared the agenda on a few of the items we're going to be talking about. I want to have your minds kind of go to a place. And so I'm going to bring up this next slide, and I want you to think about this. And I'm going to start up on the top left and talk about preparing for success. These are not the 4 elements that I'm going to be talking about. These are 4 sections that I want to pose to you before I tell you a little bit about myself to help describe, in essence, defining the value of what I believe you're going to hear and what that means as an opportunity for you and what can you take away from this. So why should we even consider the 4 steps and how they lead to success? So this is about you. So think about this. So I can see a few other individuals who have joined with us. I know that as time goes on, I would love to have a couple comments and some of your experiences that you might have had. And I'm going to start. So the top left corner, you can see it says prepare for success. And what this question, I want you to think about this right now in your mind. What are some of the standards you have? And if you're a business, that might be something that you said if you actually deal with an end retail consumer. What do you think the standard is for your shop? If you have an online website, do you have some standards that you feel you need to meet? Now, part of what I want you to think about with this is, like, Amazon is one of these. And in our world that we live, companies begin to set what we call standards that we're then therefore kind of needing to know, or that we will abide by. And so I'm curious to know, do you have any minimum expectations for you as a person? Think about a restaurant. If you've gone out to eat, are there standards that you have at or while attending that restaurants? I know I do. I know I'm a little bit picky. My wife tells me that I'm a little bit too critical on some things. I travel quite a bit. And so in that travel, I just find that there are some simple things that really make me enjoy my experience while eating. And some of those is just simple correctness on the food, right? So I would say that there's expectations we have that if I order a meal, that order comes out correct. So think about this. If we know that there's these standards, it's an important part that we start to set those baselines, because if we understand what the standards are, we can decide how to exceed them, or we can decide or look to understand how we might not be exceeding those. So in your mind, again, this page I'm looking at is more for you directly. So think in your mind, what are my standards? If I'm driving a car, do I have a particular type of car I like to drive because it means something about me? In my home, do I have things that help me set standards because I have this particular standard of living? You might have something with spending. You might have those with your clothes. You might have those again with your restaurants. And so I'm wanting you to think about in your mind what some of those standards are. And we're going to come back as we look at part of the customer facing perspective of this and talk about it. The next one is the top right one. It says, do you need the money? Think about it in your life. Where are you at? If you're an online business, how important is the next dollar, or how important is the conversation or the experience that you might have with that customer who comes on? What might their experience be? Do you need the money? And I want you to think about, like, oh yes, I really need that. You might think about, and I know some businesses get into the spot, I need the next sale in order to keep the lights on, or I'm needing to pay the employees. And so if you think about this, there's a lot of weights that rest on your shoulders, whether you're a business owner or if you're in a business and you're simply working and doing an amazing job as an employee. You might think, yes, that paycheck. And so I'm doing these things because at the end of the day, I'm going to be receiving this paycheck. And so I just want you to think about that. Where are you emotionally regarding your position in the business that you're working in? And so I want you to think, do I need it? Do I need to make a sell? Am I needing the money? Can I not do without it? And so think about that mentally. Where are you? And again, the reason I'm having you do this and get your mind and try to answer some of these questions is I'm going to now flip this on its head a little bit here in just a minute. The next question I have for you to think about is, do you know all? How much do you know? Are you the expert in that field? Now, you might be thinking, well, why am I asking this question? If you're there and you're listening, this is not because I'm asking you to certify or solidify, yes, I am an expert. The question is, are you the one that really knows best for the other individual or not? And I would love for you to kind of just take a minute and think through that, because a lot of the times, if you're in a room, and you might have heard this, the goal is that you should not be the smartest person in the room, but you should be the one who asks the best questions. And businesses that become scalable, we find that we're actually hiring better talent, smarter people, more capable people than us. And if you're in the room and you're an employee, and if you're working for a business and you're attending this, think about that. When you walk into the room, is your goal to be the smartest in the room? Do you know all? And that's one of the reasons why I kind of put this up here is, do you know all? How well do you understand your skills? Are they good? Are you the best one for the job? And a lot of this, it's not about you. Well, it's not. And that's what I love bringing up, because we're going to flip this on its head again, because often when we start to engage with our customers and we think of an experience, oftentimes that starts from our side. So you're the customer, your customer is the hero, you are not. And we'll talk a little about that. I talked lastly here again, what expectations are you providing? And this is one, is how simple can it be to set a course? And I'm not going to spend much right now on this, but if you think through this, I had you think in your mind, prepare for success. Where are you in your mind? What are your baselines? What are your standards? Do you need the money? Where are you at with your drive and need for part of what is that financial component and or the solution? Do you know all? And what are the expectations that you're providing? So again, thanks for joining us. I'm Nathan Erznoznik with the Grace Company. And what I want to do before I kind of get into the 4 steps and look at some of these, the solutions and some of these answers I have, is I just want to share a little bit about me. I've been background, I was a senior department manager for a financial institution for about 8 years, moved and came over to the company I'm currently employed with called the Grace Company. I'm the director of marketing and sales. I've been with the business now for 16 years, and it was really fun. Part of my brief story is I used to sell gifts and things during some holiday gift shows. And I knew and met the owner because guess what? From Grace Company, you might have heard about us. If not, we do quilting machines and quilting frames. Well, we also have an interesting arm on the side, which is toys, and we do some other things. But long story short, I met the owner, just introduced myself, didn't do much with them for about a couple of years, then decided I wanted to come by and see how the Grace Company was doing, dropped by a resume. Long story short, the owner and I shook hands, made an agreement to come and help work in such an amazing environment, help grow this business. And so over 16 years, the Grace Company, we deal with several of the large sewing machine manufacturers. If you're in anywhere and you've been anything with fashions or fabrics or anything, you'll know the Bernina names and the Brother and Juki's, Genome's, Faf's, Vikings, and all of those. Well, we as a company, we partner with some of these selected individuals, and we do some engineering and we provide some insights, and we partner with them in order to help them move more into the quilting realm. So my background stems from a little bit from some senior management and financial, and then in the last 16 years, kind of as managing and working with so many of the different individuals here in the sewing, fashion, and really for us, it's the quilting world. And so that's been my experience. We're a global business, so we do business in several countries. We have several dealers throughout the US, and with our distributors in the different countries, we manufacture products. So at the root of it, we're manufacturers. And we do sell to distributors. We also sell to the wholesale, or what I call the wholesale, or you might be referring to yourself as a retail store, and we sell direct to consumers. And so we have an ability, and I've had the chance of connecting with customers at different levels. So again, think of yourself, if you're joining this call, I can see several of you who are on this call. Who are you? What is your position? What are you hoping to gain from this? And I'm asking for you to open your mind, so that as we talk about a couple of these things, if there's only one nugget you can take, I would ask, what is that you're going to take that you can apply that will help you continue to find increased success in your own scope with those customers that you service? And again, if you're an online company, you're going to have some online customers. If you're actually just in a business and you're working with others and you have positions, those customers could be your managers, they could be your other employees. And then from a direct to consumer, you might also have a storefront where people are coming in as well. So I believe that these can be applied at all those different levels. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the next slide. We're going to talk about the first item that I want to refer to, and it's creating an experience. And well, what is this? And I'm going to introduce you to a new, it's a model. It's not a new model. It's been around since the early 80s. And I want to share you a little bit about what we call the Kano model and talk about a few details on this. But first I want to ask, what is the standards that we have today? And if you're in your current position or your place, is the standard, is it inviting? If you were to take yourself and come in the front door as a customer, are you setting some standards that they're expecting? And are you meeting or at least coming to what I would call the minimum standard of what they will have as an expectation? And so I want to hear a little bit about if there might be a couple of you that would be willing to chat in, this would be great. But I'm curious to know if you've had any stories that you might share. And the word that I want to focus on is an exceptional customer experience. And so I'm going to kind of take this, and this is one of the things I really like to kind of point out is in the world we have today, there are a lot of opportunities for us to have experienced and or to provide exceptional customer service. So think through this. I do have several of you that are with me and joining me. As you're doing this, if you would like to participate, I would love to hear a story. I'll start off by sharing something that I know would be probably common to something that we'd have. I'm a particular guy, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, when I go out to eat, I don't love having my plate sit in front of me once I'm finished eating. And I know, like I'm a big Diet Coke drinker. You might be the same, or whatever your beverage of choice would be. And often if I'm at a trade show or somewhere, I'm pretty thirsty. And so I just would love to have my drink filled. So not the highest expectation, but I've had a couple experiences where I've gone into the restaurants, and one of her name was Kate, and I was at this restaurant. And as I was eating, one is she was very particular and asked me a little bit more about my request on my meal. And so I had my salad, and I was doing that before my steak. And a lot of the times people just order and you're going to get your dressing and they bring it. Now think about it. Some of you might not want dressing on top of it. You might want it on the side, or you might want it light. And one of the nice things is I didn't have to bring that up. It was simple. She says, hey, I would like to, here's the dressing. She says, that's something you would like to have mixed on the salad, or would you like that on the side? Again, something simple, but it kind of stood me back just a little bit, because I was like, oh, that's usually something that I have to remember to ask. I'm often dressing on the side. I dip my fork in it, and that's how I eat it. Also with my drinks, I mentioned often at the beginning, hey, I'm a little bit thirsty. If it's okay, I just want to make sure that my drink can be filled. Yes, I'm a little bit specific about that. But the thing that was nice is during this particular experience, it was actually, she would bring out a drink before when I was a little over halfway through my beverage. And so I never got to a position where I felt like I needed to ask. And again, that's me being a little bit more specific, but there's small things, it's one of those where if I'm at home and I have the ability to go fill up my cup with whatever that is I want, I just do that. So the expectation is that I have that available for me at that time. And so the experience when I finished it, and not only was it the meal cooked to par, not only was I being serviced, not only did she help clarify the menu, re-clarify that menu when we were done, she was sensing my availability to come and check on me. And I felt like she had engaged with me, in essence, the right amount of times to make sure that as I moved through my meal and as I had the experiences, that I was going to be pleased. I was happy. And again, that's not a really big one, but I'll tell you, I walked away and I was, man, that was a really nice experience. Some of it has to do with the atmosphere, but at the end of the day, somebody thinking about what she might be able to do in order to help me with the requests that I might need at that time. So I'm going to open this up. Does anybody have any type of an exceptional customer experience that you have had? And an easy way to know if it's exceptional is most likely you told somebody else about it. So exceptional customer experiences are so good that you cannot but help tell somebody else about what that experience is. And so I know we have several people joining us here. If you're on the Zoom call with us, I would love to hear and have anybody out there share the experience. I'm going to kind of just pause for a quick minute and think about it. I see a Liz, I see a Leslie, I see a Tammy, a Teresa, a Randy, Solonis, Katie. Have any of you had an experience that was so good that you ended up telling somebody else about it? Did you ever visit a restaurant? You're like, I have to tell somebody about this. Sometimes it's food. Oftentimes it's actually the experience as a whole. If you think about this, that when you leave makes you feel better than when you went, and you felt like you need to then share it with somebody else. Anybody else have an experience that you can share with us? And that includes you, Darren. You might have something that you've received you've had an exceptional customer experience.
I'll give you one to help get things going, so this way no one else is first. Walt Disney World, my daughter bought those mouse ears. They ripped. We put them under the stroller. We go back to the store to replace them. I go to talk to the clerk and say, yeah, I was telling her the story, how they ripped, and I go to look under the stroller and they're gone. And if any of us have been to Disney, that is not a cheap thing to lose, let alone Disney's not a cheap experience. The clerk behind the counter just took the ears off the shelf and just said, have a magical day, princess, and put them on her and sent us on our way. You couldn't put any better words on just the Disney magic through every level of the employees, to who takes the garbage, to that cashier at a concession stand giving away $30 worth of ears to make sure a guest has a magical experience.
So anybody else have any magical experiences that you can share? Again, Darren, thank you very much. That's one of those ones where you get a little bit of a fear because you bought them, you didn't have them, and knowing that, hey, we're just going to take care of you is a great way to go. Teresa, anything from you at all? Anyone else have any other comments they'd like to add in at this point before I continue on? All right, I'm going to continue from the perspective of time, but I'm going to quickly bring up the Kano model. I want everybody to look at this. This is an interesting one. This is a true model. This is something that a lot of people refer to as maybe part of the customer cycle. And what this is in the middle is this blue arrow. And what this becomes is this is the standard that is being set. So in the world, there's a lot of standards that get set. And again, I'm going to use Amazon because it's this beast which again, some of us love and some of us hate. Let's not worry about that. But 2-day shipping is one of those standards that they are creating. And so even for our business here at Grace Company, and what the blue line is what this means is, if you can see about this, the green above it is delighters. Anything below it is one that's called dissatisfaction. And so the rule of thumb is if there is a standard that has been set and we fall below the standard, then our customers are more likely to be dissatisfied. If we can do something that moves above that and sets a better experience, then our customers will be delighted, or they'll be more likely to remember the experience. And so I love bringing this up. It's the Kano model. I refer to this incredibly often here internally because this works if you're in your own business and or you're one of these employees. Your employee sitting across from you, or your boss, or anybody else is also a customer of yours that you can delight, or you can do less than, and then they can be more dissatisfied. And so I love this Kano model as it looks to the customer's experience as a whole. So I'm going to kind of move past this and come to this last piece. And I love this. I'm just going to circle this. And this is why I'm going to bring this up, because the experience, if it's average, it's forgettable and you can forget it. So if you can provide something unexpected, then you're going to be able to provide better customer service. And so I tell this with ours, and I ask this question, hey, when somebody calls in, and I'm talking with one of our sales members or customer service, I said, is there something you can do that is unexpected to help delight the customer on that phone call? And some of it can be wording, which is most of the time how that comes, but are we thinking about that? So I'm going to leave that thought with you, is creating a customer experience, and how we can quickly do that is by thinking about providing something that is unexpected, that is positive, will delight your customer. And I refer to this as what I call 6-star customer service. And I say that because in the world, can you really have 5 stars all the time? The answer is really no. There has to be a customer somewhere that is not completely satisfied. I believe if there's that customer that's on the border and you provide them something that delights them, that is unexpected, above and beyond, that you will give them that extra portion of the star. And so I do believe it is available for you to provide 5-star customer service. But how that's done is by understanding the Kano model and briefly understanding that if you delight one of your customers and provide an experience, then they are more likely to go out and share that experience with others. So that's number one. We're going to go ahead and look at number two on part of what this is. And part of this is going to be looking at being prepared not to sell. And I love this. And we're all salesmen in our own ways. If you're in marketing, you're a salesperson. If you're a sales, you're sales. Your customer service, you're going to sell. If you're running anything in the business, you're trying to convince and help other people believe and join your story. So I do believe that we're always selling a little bit. Here's the thing though. Place yourself in a safe place mentally to increase your connection with the customer and not sell. So be prepared to not sell. And I love this because I have been, and you most likely have been in a scenario where it feels like the person you're talking to has to sell something, or there's a need, or it's going to affect them personally if they don't sell something. We do not love to be in that position. Customers, we do not like to be sold. We love to buy. And so I love talking about these in just some simple bullet points. It's not about you, your shop, or your revenue. This particular bullet point is not about you, your shop, or your revenue. If you always think about engaging with your customer, and it is, your customers will sense that, and I will tell you, you will be less successful. So it's not about you. It's not about your shop or your revenue. And I'll follow this up on the next slide. It's about the customer, and it's about their experience. Customers, they can know, they can sense, and they can feel that need if you actually have those needs and you go into that conversation with your customer. This is the same whether you're chatting online or if your message online reads that same way. If it's not about that consumer and helping them create the experience, they'll know that and they're less likely to buy because it's also more insincere. And then sales will come because you become the expert guide, not because you're the salesman and not because you're trying to present products to them. So a guide in helping them get where they are trying to go. So be prepared not to sell at the end of the day is by you not thinking about what you're trying to do, but helping them get where they're trying to go and becoming a guide with them. And I'm going to move to the next one here, which is answering questions with a question. And you can put your hand up if you've ever been in a scenario and somebody's asked you a question. And the first thing you do is, boom, I've got an answer. And sometimes that's the right thing. Hey, where's the store entrance? That's an easy one. Boom, it's right over there. For the most part, when somebody comes into the store and they're going to start and they're going to ask a question, it's because there was a reason. What caused them to get in their car if there's a retail store? What caused them to start the search online? What caused you and your manager to decide that you're going to be getting together in order to have the conversation? So answer the question with a question. Don't sell a customer what you want them to buy. Let's let them get what they want. And so I guess don't sell a customer what you want, but what they want. And so the quick story to this one is by identifying the customer's root, their need, their issue, their concern, or their want actually positions you for success. And I'm going to just use this as a quick example with quilting for ourselves. Somebody calls up, they're like, hey, I've got some interest. I either saw something online. Tell me a little bit more about this machine. If you think about it, the tool's really the last bit of the step. If we can understand and identify why they're wanting the machine, ultimately, if it's to finish a quilt, you can say, oh, that's great. Hey, Nathan, they're wanting this because they want to finish a quilt. Well, that's nice, but that's only partway there. Oftentimes, there's a reason why they're looking to finish the quilt. For us, a specific thing would be there's a lot of reasons people give quilts. It's because there's a loved one, there's a new grandchild, there's a wedding, there's a graduation. At the end, it might just be simply frustration with them working with the current tools they have. So if we don't just say, here, let me tell you about this machine, somebody calls and says, hey, I hear you, I can see this 15's on sale, and we start rattling off some information about a machine, we don't really actually know what the purpose was that caused them to start even considering our brand, our product, or our solution, which means it's going to be much harder for us to help match what will be best for them. So I like to say this, understanding where they're coming from, not just what they are asking, is critical. So when somebody asks you something, and this can be your manager, and I have this happen all the time, put yourself in this position, someone's like, oh, hey, I need this report that has these things on there. And then there's a lot of, hey, we can go and start putting the report to go, hey, would you mind give me some information regarding, and for me, it might be the sales that we had last month. And that's all nice. And I can give them an answer, but have you ever responded with a response and had them say, well, no, it's not really what I was looking for. So the same thing applies to us in our lives, in our businesses, in our jobs, in our different positions. And one of those great things is, that's great. I would love to do that. Would you mind if I ask, help me better understand? And so what I like to do is, instead of responding an answer to a question, is I go back and say, well, that'd be wonderful. I can help do that. Would you mind if I ask you a few questions so I can better understand part of what your needs are? For us in our world, there's space constraints, there's budget constraints, there's skill set constraints. And so unless I really know ultimately part of where they're coming from and where they're looking to go, it is very hard for you to match a customer with what that is. Digitally, for a website, this can be done through surveys, this can be done through chats and other ways of helping a customer understand kind of a good, better, best. And then some of it is, again, looking at ultimately the purpose and why somebody might be looking to get involved. If you're out there doing yarn or you're doing knitting, if you think about a lot of the reasons people do this, is some of it is a peaceful place for them to go as a hobby. And so if we can connect with them and understanding what they're looking to do, and then often it's a pattern or they want to try to accomplish a new knit design. So if we can understand and connect with them, and then we can guide them. And so I like to put customers customers really are ultimately looking for the result and not the tool. So they're ultimately having this purpose behind it. And so to me, the last question I asked on this is, what is the purpose for them coming to visit with you? If you're, again, business to business, what is the purpose for the two of you connecting with each other? Often it's a lot more than the top level question. There's a lot underneath that. My goal is, instead of answering a question directly, let's go ahead and ask a question so that we can get and understand what is behind the scenes, in order to make sure that we can then become more of a consultant to lead and guide them, versus being the ones that are simply answering at the top level. I'm going to go to one of our last slides here, which is create expectations. And this is a simple one. Everybody, a lot of the times in this world, there's a lot of chaos, is helping somebody create a roadmap, defining part of the progression that can happen. So with our customers, when somebody walks in, at the end of the day, using my example, somebody decides to buy a long arm or a quilting machine, and we say, thank you very much, goodbye. What we've lost the opportunity to do is to continue to connect with them and provide them their next steps from an expectation standpoint. So again, if you're a brick and mortar store, you can think about when somebody comes in, what I would ask for you to do is to think about the journey or a path where they might be if they're a beginner. Where might they be if they're a midline, or where might they be if they've been crocheting for years? It's always great to have a next step prepared for them if somebody comes in. And even if it's they buy, I'm already good, I'm a professional, I knit and quilt, I can do this all the time with all these different styles, and they buy a new color, it's always great to say, hey, if like those colors potentially refresh, you might have been introduced into a potential different thickness of yarn or thread that might help them do a slightly different style. So if you're available and willing to have part of a course or what could be the next 1 or 2 steps for them, as you're checking them out, or even before that, you can say, hey, here are some other things that individuals like you have considered, and here's the path. And also be prepared when you start to find success that you're also going to be able to be excited and look forward to these other items as well. So prepare them for what's next, both in experience and in product sales, and don't leave that on the table. So I'm going to kind of look at this last one here that I want to talk about. Now, this is a combination between the first set of slides where I asked you questions, which you can see in light gray. So up here on the left, we have prepare for success. Ultimately, the first step in preparing for success is making sure that you're in your mind ready and willing to create an experience for that customer. The second one I asked is, do you need the money? And this is the big one again. If it's all about you and what your needs are, then the customer becomes disconnected from that. So be prepared not to sell. And what's interesting is you go through this. So if you're preparing to create an experience, you're going to create success. If you're not worried about the money and you're prepared to not sell, well, what that leads to is number 3, instead of do you know it all, remember, it's not about you knowing it all and answering it, being prepared to then ask questions to help understand really what their need is. What you end up being able to do is then become the guide, the lead that ultimately helps set the journey and the pace for them. And at the very end, the one is what expectations are you providing? Well, that allows you to then create the expectations with your customer, which is actually where at that point where customers are like, hey, I need this, because you've helped ask the questions, you've helped position yourself. You become the guide, not the hero. You're not the one that they're there to see. You might be, but in general, they're there because, again, they're looking at ultimately where they started with their journey 1 hour before, 1 day before, 1 month before, 1 year before, and they're coming into you now because they think that there might be a tool or there might be something that can be within the vicinity of them coming to be a customer with you as a patron that you're going to be able to provide. So look at being the hero. Again, those are kind of the 4 things I like to do: is the value of creating an experience, understand that it's about experience. I talked about the Kano model, be prepared to not sell, make sure to ask questions at the end, make sure to set expectations. And so in summary, really just a quick bit would be, you will both better know your customers, and you're going to be able to find increased success with sales by understanding that there are these 4 elements that you can think about applying. And what I would ask is, as you kind of leave from this today, and as I've shared these, I just know from the experience I deal with, not just 10s or 20s of individuals and customers that are direct. At the end of the day, the direct customers, I deal with, those 10s, those 20s, and hundreds of dealers and businesses. And these are some things, as I've traveled throughout the world, that I have seen that are pretty simple things that if they understood they were creating an experience, if they understood it wasn't about them and about their dollar, if they understood, it wasn't about the sell, it was about the experience. If they understood that by asking questions to better understand them, they're going to create the right experience. Those things tie back together. And at the end, like I mentioned a little bit here towards the beginning, is you can delight your consumer and you'll have a customer for life. And you're going to not only see the purchase at that time, you're not going to see them subscribe. You're not only going to see them like, you're going to see them share and find those same experiences that they're going to be introducing to their friends, to their families, and to their other ones, which is really the way a lot of the world's working today. It's kind of how the whole social media thing goes. If you want to go viral, create experiences and do these 4 simple steps. Think of a way to implement at least one of them in your current life. I would recommend, and I believe that you're going to find some additional success from what that is. So I would like to say, if there are any last questions that anybody has regarding any of these different points, I'd be more than glad to share them. I know this was kind of a high level. Each one of these does have a lot more, but I'd like to see what questions we might have from the audience as we're currently sitting here as we conclude part of my presentation. Questions from anyone? Katie, Leslie, Tammy.
As a little reminder, please, everyone, just remember you can unmute yourself, just as we're all become used to over the last 2 years. I would expect all of us know how to use Zoom. So just go ahead and unmute yourself, or if you feel more comfortable, go ahead and use the chat box as another way to submit those questions.
I do have that chat box open.
in the sense of filling dead air. You can always connect with Nathan directly if you want. Nathan, you're on the screen here, so you can write him directly or give him a call. Also on the H&H Connect platform, you can reach out to him. You can also check out their company profile and learn more about their products and what they offer. Also coming up this week, we still have many more classes that are being offered over the next few days. So please check out the additional free conference program on the H&H Digital Connect platform.
All right, Darren, I think we're good. If anybody else wants to connect with me, please take down my details. Feel free to send me an email or reach out to me on a call. So thank you very much, Darren. It's been great being here. It's been wonderful, and I've appreciated being part of this event today.